Hi, everyone. How's it going? Good. Good, a little nervous, but I'm so excited to be here. My name is Ciara of Hey Ciara. I have a travel blog that empowers women to see the world, whether it be with or without someone by their side. And so today I will be here talking about landing brand collabs at any size. And within the presentation, we will be covering growth in the influencer marketing industry, why brands want to work with you as a micro-influencer, pitching, management, everything in between. I'm gonna try to squeeze in as much as I can, and if I don't talk too much, then I will leave 10 to 15 minutes of question time at the end. I don't care. So, this is a verbatim email that was sent to me in 2017 when I first pitched a brand on my solo backpacking trip around the world. Harsh, right? But a lot has changed since then. It's 2022. I am a full-time travel blogger. I've gotten the opportunity to work with brands around the world. Some of my favorite travel brands, including Airbnb, Away Luggage, Marriott, Chase Bank, and it's been awesome. And so I'm so excited to be talking about this today because had I let this email discourage me, I wouldn't have the opportunities that I have now. A lot has changed. So a lot has not only changed for me, but a lot has also changed within the influencer marketing industry. According to Forbes, the influencer marketing industry has more than doubled since 2019. And the opportunities that are available are so much greater than they were in 2015 or 2017 when I started. And especially 2020 as we saw digital kind of take over in the midst of the pandemic. According to MediaKicks, 8 out of 10 marketers found influencer marketing to be more effective than other forms of digital marketing, and we can't doubt the impact and, of course, the influence that influencers have across the board, both big and small. And so what does that mean for you? So as an influencer of any size, that means that there are a greater number of opportunities. When I was first starting, these opportunities were very scarce. And so a lot of brands hadn't fully caught on, and of course some brands are still catching on, but those numbers are much higher, which means that those opportunities are available for, of course, those bigger creators, but also a lot more small creators. So what is a micro-influencer? A micro-influencer is known as someone with less than 100,000 followers. I'm currently sitting at 90K, but the content creators or the brands that I've worked with, I started working with them at around 4,000 followers. So that's for anyone in here who might be like, 90K, girl, I don't have that, but that's okay. You don't need that. There are so many opportunities available to you, even if you have 10,000 followers, even 1,000 followers, 50,000, and it's been amazing to see that change and also see peers in the industry gain partnerships when maybe a few years ago, those opportunities would not have been available. So, the rise of the micro-influencer. As we know, we have the celebrity influencers, we have the macro-influencers, which are those with over 100,000, 500,000, of course, 1 million. And the rise of the micro-influencer has come along as brands have noticed that micro-influencers have a deeper connection with their audience. When you're smaller, you really have the opportunity to relate to your audience, to really share your story in a way that might be a bit more difficult if you're larger. We know that these celebrity influencers, they seem so out of reach. Of course, the macro influencers, they become unrelatable, and a micro-influencer tends to kind of stick to, their roots. They're able to truly be authentic, and they're just starting off. They might not have many partnerships, so there's not that weight or that pressure that you have at a larger size, which is a huge benefit to being a micro-influencer, let me tell you. Also, decrease costs. So this means that micro-influencers are more accessible to brands, both large and small. So of course, the larger brands, they've got money to spend, but this also means that smaller brands are looking to work with micro-influencers. They may not have $1 million to spend on a campaign for a macro-influencer or for a celebrity influencer. Not to mention, these smaller brands, like there's more of a connection with the niche oftentimes and a targeted audience. So as a micro-influencer, instead of talking about travel in general, you may talk about solo travel, you may talk about budget travel, you may talk about traveling as a Gen Z kid, you may talk about all kinds of different topics within travel, which means that those smaller brands and larger brands that are looking for a connection with a specific audience, they're looking to you. So why me? You may be wondering why a brand would want to work with you as a smaller content creator. And I often wondered the same thing early on in my career. And so you're thinking, okay, they have these macro influencers with millions of followers or hundreds of thousands of followers. Why would they be looking to me? So as I explained, of course, you have that relatability, you have that stronger connection, you likely are a bit more niche, which brands are looking for that targeted audience, and also you have a story to tell. So hopefully as a micro-influencer, you're truly leveraging your story, who you are, where you come from, how travel has played a role in your life, and everything in between. Like I said, I think the beauty of being a micro-influencer is that you don't have that pressure, you aren't working with brands, so you can kind of do whatever you want, which is a huge plus. You can say whatever you want. You can play by your own game, and that's really beautiful. And I truly encourage any micro-influencers to exercise that privilege before you get caught up in like, oh, what are my followers, what do they think? What are my followers wanting? What are my peers thinking? And it's really empowering and it's really freeing. And so also, of course, you have the target audience and the target niche, and your audience has a personal connection with you. They trust you, they're following you, they feel like you're one of them, and you likely are. And so you have that connection that is invaluable. So why pursue collaborations as an influencer? I do feel like at times in certain industries that there is a stigma against sponsored collaborations. And I don't think that that should be the case at all. Why? Because as an influencer, especially a micro-influencer, these partnerships will allow you to truly invest in your brand. So if you need a new camera, if you need to hire someone, if you need to truly grow your business, these partnerships can provide you with the income and the opportunities to do so, which of course will propel you as an individual and your brand. They also can help you establish credibility. Although a sponsorship or a collaboration does not make or break you, if you are wanting to experiment with content creation, your creativity, this is a great way to establish that relatability and that credibility with these brands. And so, of course, it looks great if you can say that you worked with this incredible hotel brand or this incredible airline, you created content for them. Even if you don't want to be a content creator full time, this looks great on a resume. At this point, this is a profession. And so you can truly leverage these opportunities within the influencer or content creation industry, but also in all realms. And so that's gonna be really awesome. Also, it helps you build your creator portfolio. If you wanna continue working with brands, or let's say you're into photography, videography, you're a writer also, this will help you continue to build your portfolio. You'll be able to say that you wrote or photographed for these really cool brands. They trusted you with a campaign, $1 million campaign or whatever it was, and you executed. And so that's really great. And so in addition to that, you provide value to your audience. Like I said, there's a stigma that sponsorships can be inauthentic or sometimes unethical, but that is highly dependent upon you and the partnerships that you choose to accept. And hopefully you'll be accepting partnerships that are in line with your values, your brand, and also provide value to your audience. And so that may look like a giveaway, in collaboration with another brand. That may look like a new product, service, feature that these brands are trying to promote. So it not only benefits them, you, but it also benefits your audience. They'll be introduced to a new feature, they'll be introduced to a new app, they'll be introduced to some new gear that will help them on their next trip. And so audience is key. That's going to be the number one thing that you're looking for when you're collaborating with brands is, does this serve my audience? And we will get into that a little bit later. So it also allows you to create higher quality and quantity content. So we all know travel is not cheap, and the more you travel or the more that you create content, it continues to get more and more expensive. So these partnerships can truly allow you to create higher quality and higher quantity content. If you're partnering with destinations or tourism boards, you have the opportunity to sometimes visit places that you may not have been able to. And that might not be because of, let's say it's expensive, but the volume of trips you're needing to take to maintain your brand or to maintain or continue to provide value to your audience, it continues to increase as you grow. And so this allows you to truly be able to continue creating content in both quality and quantity. In addition to that, like I said, quality, whenever you're creating content and you're starting off, you may be working with your iPhone, which is great. I did that for years. Or you may be, you're starting from the ground up, and then with this investment in your business, whether it be into the trips or whether it be into gear for your brand or for your, production, this allows you to continue creating that high quality content and continue to grow from there as a creator. And then, of course, you get to visit dream destinations. I think we all love to travel, right? And so this will allow you to visit dream destinations, whether it be through a collaboration with a tourism board or a destination, but also, if this is a paid partnership, this can also continue to fund your organic trips. So those unpaid gigs that you're taking on your own, you're taking for fun, you're using that to create content, this can continue to fuel and improve your organic content as well. So it's not just about the sponsored content. So on attracting aligned partnerships. So this is the root of it all. As a content creator, how are you going to be attracting brands who want to work with you? Of course, we have the basics, right? Post consistently, serve your audience, but I want to continue to emphasize that because as a creator, sometimes we think, well, we need to wait until we have a large audience to show up in a certain way, and that's absolutely not the case. You should be posting as if you have 1 million followers today. You should be truly cherishing and serving your audience today, whether you have 1,000 followers, 10,000 followers. Serve your audience, and I promise you it will pay off. Not only will they be loyal supporters, but once you catch the attention of these brands, they will look at that. They're scanning your profile to see what's going on in the comments. They're scanning your profile to see how you're showing up, how consistently you're showing up. Is this someone that we want to actually work with? Is this someone that's professional? Is this someone that can storytell? Is this someone that is creating beautiful content? And whatever that looks like for you, you may not be a photographer, you may not be a videographer or a writer, but figure out what works best for you, what works best for your audience, and continue to do that and produce as if you are the content creator, influencer, blogger that you ultimately wish to be. And don't hold back. On top of that, make sure you're entertaining, inspiring, and educating. So these are 3 things that I ask myself every time I post a piece of content. Am I doing one of these 3 things? So is my content funny? Is it relatable? Is it educational? Is it entertaining? Is it inspiring if it's none of those other things? And so once again, this is going to continue to help you not only remain consistent in terms of quantity, but to ensure that you're posting a high quality content, which is super important. And also I want to go back and say, when I say post consistently, that may not look like every day for you. That may not look like every other day, but find out what consistency looks like to you. A great tip is for you to batch your content. So let's say you do work a full-time job, potentially spend Saturdays and Sundays just cranking out content, and you don't post it on the same day. You'll batch it up to post during the week, the time that you don't have time to sit and create content or be creative. And this is going to be a great way for you to remain consistent. So on top of that, show what you naturally use. What products are you naturally loving and utilizing when you travel? What hotel brands do you love? What airlines are you truly loving and using, and are you loyal to? And tag those brands, reach out to those brands. You want to make these points of contact before you actually reach out to the brand, or before you actually get the collaboration or land the collaboration. So be sure to tag them in your content. Be sure to do content that is essentially, like I said, providing value to your audience. But if a brand comes to your page, they look at that and they say, we could see ourselves fitting in here. We could see her telling our story. We could see him telling our story. Whether that be, let's say you are within the fashion niche within travel. Maybe you do packing videos. Maybe you love away luggage. You tag away luggage. You talk about the luggage. You do a variety of content that centers around the content that you love, and that helps with this alignment. So whenever these brands reach out to you, it makes perfect sense, not only for them, but also for your audience, because they've seen you raving about this brand. And so that allows you to continue to receive support on your sponsored posts, and your audience will also, of course, love to support that, because they've seen you grow along the way. They've seen you talk about these brands along the way, and a loyal audience, well, they will support. And then, of course, do you, boo. There's no rules to this. There are no rules to this. And that's one of my favorite things about the influencer industry, especially now in 2022 with the rise of TikTok and, kind of this uncurated version of content that we haven't seen with Instagram as much. You can truly talk how you talk in real life. Create content as if you were you. There's no need to put on this professional persona or talk in a way that you don't, or speak in a way that you don't speak, or act in a way that you don't act. You will attract your desired audience, your target audience, and the people who will support you by being you. And not only that, you will attract more brands that also are in alignment with you. They'll look at you, they'll look at your audience, they'll look at your voice, and they'll say, she fits in here, or she fits in with us. We want her to create content for us because we've seen what she has done in the past, and we see the connection that she has with her audience. She remains true and authentic to herself or himself. And there's no need to sell your soul for sponsorships or sponsor content. There are so many opportunities available in 2022, and I urge you to truly and properly vet the sponsorships that are coming your way. You will have contacts that reach out to you that are not paying you, or it's not an equally beneficial partnership, and I implore you to delete, block. No, I'm not interested. This is not an alignment. I am not available for this opportunity. For one, it frees up space for opportunities that are in alignment with you. And two, that trust and connection you've built with your audience is the most important thing. If you begin to create content that is not in alignment with who you are, your audience will notice. They'll pick up on that. And in the end, it's not worth losing that audience connection. And like I said, there's a brand that is looking for every kind of content creator, whether you curse in your content, whether you talk about potentially explicit content. It's 2022. There are all kinds of brands looking to work with all kinds of creators. So please do keep that in mind. Don't think you have to look towards another content creator, copy what they're doing, do it the way that they're doing. As you continue to build out your content and create, you may need a template starting off, but branch out from that and also ask yourself how you can continue to incorporate your voice, your story, and everything in between within that content. So, ways to partner with a brand. There are so many ways for you to utilize brand partnerships. This looks like your traditional social posts, but it can look like a lot of other things. You have airlines that are hosting giveaways, hotels that are hosting giveaways that may want to also provide this giveaway to your audience. Social takeovers. So this looks like content that you would create and the brand would post on their feed, or you would go and create that content on their feed. This is great for exposure, and it's also a great way to get in with these brands because once again, it builds that trust within the partnership. On top of that, you've got photography, videography. If you are a smaller content creator, this is gonna be key because you do not need a large audience to leverage your photography, videography, any imagery of that sort. So brands are looking for user-generated content. They, instead of going out to hire, let's say a photographer, videographer, model, makeup artist, all of those roles, they're looking to influencers to create this content for them. And so if you have a portfolio or a feed full of beautiful imagery, it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 followers or 100,000 or 1 million followers. You can absolutely leverage that photography, videography for these brands to use. And also, I've heard that it can be even more lucrative than in-feed social posts. So definitely something to keep in mind. User-generated content, once again, this is video content, photography, everything in between that these brands are using on their own feeds. They're using it for whitelisting, paid advertising, everything behind the scenes. Oftentimes, you might not even need to post this on your own feed. So if you don't necessarily feel comfortable doing sponsorships on your own page, this is an alternative as well. Of course, you have blog writing, article writing. A lot of brands have blogs that they're still utilizing. If you're a strong writer, this would be great for you because once again, it's not dependent on your following size. You can absolutely write for a brand's blog and continue to build out that relationship. You have event hosting. I've seen it all. Event hosting. So a lot of brands will host events all over the world, and they might be looking for a content creator to come out and host that. That might include speaking at conferences. You have personalized affiliate links, which let's say you're a smaller creator and you don't necessarily have a partnership with the brand, but you've already purchased the product. You can absolutely reach out to the brand, let them know, hey, I've been talking about this product, or I've linked this product before. Do you have an affiliate link so that I can make commission off of that? Once you use that affiliate link, not only are you gaining or earning from that affiliate link, but you can also leverage that into a paid collaboration because you'll be able to say, hey, look at all of the link clicks that I received from this product, send it over to the brand, and that could potentially turn into a paid partnership. You have consulting, you have audio and video hosting, you have product launches. So I've seen some really awesome collaborations with brands who are launching suitcases, with brands who are launching, let's say, travel-ready clothing. And as a content creator, this is a way for you to create a product. It's also a great way for you to, like I said, leverage your audience, kind of establish credibility, and this is just really fun. And I want to talk about the pictures on the side. So that same year that I reached out to the brand that responded and said, hello, Ciara, I don't care, I reached out to another brand, and this was Gecko's Adventure, because let me tell you, I was a broke blogger, and I was pitching my butt off because I was like, yeah, let's see what opportunities are available. So I reached out to Gecko's Adventures, and I had around 3,000 followers at the time. I was headed to Colombia, Peru, a few other places in South and Central America. I was backpacking solo. I reached out to them. I said, hey, my name is Ciara. I empower women to travel the world solo. A lot of women are not necessarily ready to travel solo, but they still want to go. So they're looking to join a group. And that's something that I did when I first started traveling. I joined the 18 to 29 group, and it was great. I wasn't ready for full-time or full-on solo travel yet, so this was a great way for me to do that. And I said, do you have any partnerships available? They told me they would get back to me, so I followed up. Very persistent. I followed up about 6 months later, and I said, once again, do you have any opportunities available? I would love to explore ways that we can partner together. And this time they responded. They said, actually, we do have a program that we're looking to promote. It is for 18 to 29-year-old travelers who aren't ready to go solo. And I had that exact audience. That's exactly what I was doing myself. And so it worked out very well. Obviously, I didn't have a sizable audience at the time. And so I said, hey, I can photograph the trip for you. I can also write articles for your blog, because I was writing for my own blog. And I used my own previous content, the little bit that I had, as sort of a portfolio. And they said, this is great, we'll send you along. So they sent me to Peru at the time, and I photographed the trip for them. They used these photos and this imagery as their marketing materials. They actually had a brochure come out, and for some reason, they put me on the cover. I'm not sure why about that, but I also, you see the photos here, and it was a great trip. So it was a great way for me to hike the Inca Trail, which was really incredible. And like I said, I was on a budget, so at the time I wouldn't have been able to afford it as a creator. It allowed me to, like I said, kind of create a higher quality and quantity of content. It also allowed me to, I could put this in my portfolio, my resume, and say, hey, I've created content for this brand. And to be honest, it was unpaid. But at the time, that was perfect. I was just starting off. I didn't necessarily feel like I needed to be paid, and maybe I would change that today, because marketing materials, you should be paid for that. But this was in 2017, when there weren't very many opportunities, and I was a hungry blogger, so I was like, let's do it. This could lead to more opportunities. And I continued to travel with this brand to 2 more destinations. So that was Morocco and also Indonesia. And once again, these are places that at the time, my broke traveler self may not have been able to, go and fully experience, but these are destinations that my audience was fully interested in. So I was truly able to serve my audience, give them recommendations, of course, showcase beautiful imagery, and I had a blast. And finally, I was able to also leverage it into a paid partnership. They had seen the work I'd done with them previously, and so I proposed pay, because I had learned that, once again, marketing materials are worth a lot of money, and they agreed. So that was a really awesome opportunity, and it really just encouraged me in the beginning of my travel blogging career to continue to just go after these opportunities. Okay, think beyond travel. So a lot of the times whenever we think about partnerships and collaborations, we're thinking of airlines, we're thinking of hotels, we're thinking of these household names. Well, you likely have a niche audience. You likely talk about specific subjects. So I encourage you to find your niche and think about the products that you're using when you travel. So let's say you're a foodie traveler. Think about the brands or the restaurants that you might like to work with. You do photography and videography. Lumix, Canon, Nikon, DJI. There are so many photography brands within travel that help you, of course, not only create content, but also, have this experience as a photographer, videographer that's traveling. Let's say you love festivals, music, Coachella, you travel the world for festivals. Think about the festivals that you could work with around the world. Fashion, so of course fashion brands that are releasing products that are for the traveler. I actually just got an email from Lululemon. I'm not sure why I'm signed up for their emails, but an email from Lululemon, who was releasing some travel pants that were wrinkle-free. They're supposed to be very comfortable. So a lot of these brands are launching products that are made for the individual on the go. So think about these different ways that you can truly partner with brands that are beyond just travel, because once again, those brands oftentimes, yes, they do have a budget, but they might be looking to larger influencers. These are ways for you to work with small businesses. These are ways for you to work with brands that others may not be thinking of. Of course, you have finance. Let's say you talk about budget travel or using points. There are so many finance brands that you can work with. Beauty, fitness, outdoor lifestyle, solo, family. I've had a lot of brands reach out to me. My angle is often solo travel, and they're trying to promote a solo experience or a solo opportunity. And so they're specifically looking for someone that talks about solo travel to do that and that has that experience. And once again, you do not have to have 1 million followers to do that. If I am a solo traveler who talks about solo travel and 90% of my audience is interested in solo travel, I might have more leverage than someone with 500,000 followers who just talks about travel in general, but not a sizable amount of their audience is not necessarily interested in solo travel specifically. So these are brands that are doing their research and they're looking for very specific people in very specific niches. Of course, bucket list travel, sustainability, wellness, there's something for everyone regardless of what your niche is. And I encourage you at the end of this session or at the end of the day to create a list of brands that you would love to work with. As I like to say, it's a bit woo-woo, but manifest it. Maybe create a vision board. I like to do that, and it has actually served me pretty well. Also, it's just you are taking the time to be intentional and to lay out the brands that you would like to work with. They can be small brands, they can be big brands. And if you want to take it a step further, I encourage you to create an Excel sheet. Create a schedule. When you're going to pitch these brands, you're going to reach out at this point. This is the day that you're going to follow up and kind of keep track of everything. Once again, this is a way to be very intentional. And I believe science says that if you track things or your goals, they're more likely to happen or something like that. So you should be pitching, period. As a smaller content creator, you do have less visibility. That's not up for debate. However, you can still get yourself in front of brands by pitching. And yes, I know it is a bit nerve-wracking, but it is a great way to continue to put yourself out there. It's a great way to prove your value as a content creator, increase the visibility that you don't have, and then of course network with these brands. And so they may say, hey, we're not looking for someone right now, but they've written you down on a list. They may reach out to you in 6 months. They may reach out to you next year or when a project is more aligned. On top of that, as you're pitching, like I said, you're continuing to grow those brand contacts, but also you're actually giving yourself a chance. It is hard to stand out in this online space. It's hard to stand out when there are people with millions, hundreds of thousands followers that have a much larger reach than you. And this is you actually giving yourself a chance and an opportunity. Pitch perfect. So these are some tips to actually help you pitch if that's something that you're interested in. And I would say, starting off, actually follow the brand. I've talked to a lot of brands and tourism boards that say content creators reach out to us. They're not even following us. And brands are taking notice of that. There are a limited number of opportunities. So of course, they're more willing to work with someone who has what they would say prospected them. Organically tag and link the brand. So you don't need to be working with a brand to tag them in your content. I would recommend, if you're talking about a brand, if you're talking about an experience, if you flew United, tag them in your content, tag them in your Instagram stories. Brands can see when you tag them in the DMs, which I do recommend sliding in the DMs, but we'll get to that. And then on top of that, whether it be Twitter, TikTok, brands are very active on social media these days. I see them in people's TikTok comments like they're individuals. But either way, brands are very in the mix. And so if you do create something, let's say it goes viral on TikTok, a brand sees it or you've tagged them, of course, there's a potential for partnership. If you haven't tagged them, there's a much lower chance of them seeing it. Early on, when in 2018 or 2019, I believe, I did a Twitter thread where I shared some budget travel tips that I thought were pretty common knowledge, but I guess they weren't. The thread went viral. I tagged all of the brands that I actually use, and that's how I ended up getting one of my first paid partnerships, aside from the Geckos Adventure ones, but that's how I ended up getting my first paid partnership. The brand reached out to me and they said, hey, we love what you've done. We've seen that this many people have seen this or retweeted this, and we'd like to discuss a potential partnership. What's your rate? I had never really given my rate before, so I was like, okay, I got to do some research. But it was really awesome to see this happen very organically, and it could definitely happen for you. So I encourage you to continue tagging the brands, both in the captions that you're writing, in the actual post, and interact with the brands if you can, So leave a comment on posts that they're making. Send them a DM and say, hey, I'm loving your product. If you post something and it does really well, you can even screenshot those analytics, email it to the brand and say, hey, I do this, or I share this. I just wanted to share this product. I'm loving it. I shared it with my audience. They're loving it. I'd love to explore opportunities to partner together in the future. May happen and may not, but once again, you're putting yourself out there. So if you're wondering how you can actually contact these brands, there are a multitude of ways. You can send an email to the general press PR contact. This is what I did a lot early on. The only downside about this is who knows who it's going to. So if you're looking for a more direct way, you can go to LinkedIn, search for the influencer marketing, influencer relationships, or PR person that's designated to this business or for this product. And you can try to message them or reach out to them directly. Slide in the DMs. I've done this quite a bit where I have said, hey, I am interested in partnering with this company. Would you mind sending over the press and the PR contact? And I would say about 50% of the time they do respond. But this is just going to be another way for you to actually get in contact with brands. So as you can see, this is a lot. This is a hustle. But it oftentimes does pay off. Remember that it's a numbers game. I feel like oftentimes within the industry, especially as you're growing, it's easy to forget that you're growing a business. I believe that statistic is a lot of businesses do not actually turn a profit until about 4 to 5 years in. That's any business. And so that also applies to a digital business, which is what you are or what you're trying to become. On top of that, whenever you're cold pitching, cold calling, you will get 9 out of 10 no's. And so it's important to remember that these are just numbers. It's not anything personal if no one responds. It's not anything against you. It's not anything to actually take to heart. There's so many reasons why they might not be responding. Maybe someone didn't receive it. Maybe this is not something that they're working on this season. But once again, it's just a numbers game. And ultimately, nothing should be taken personal. And that's a way to kind of continue to encourage yourself and not get discouraged. So what to include in your pitch? So of course, you want to make an introduction. You want to show your audience demographics, your analytics, why you want to work with this brand specifically, or why you want to talk about a specific product or feature, how this is going to serve your audience, and include a portfolio. So I've included an example pitch. This is along the lines of pitches that I've sent in the past. Hello, I'm a travel blogger at HeySierra.com. I encourage and empower women to seek out opportunities across the world or live their best life. I am a huge fan of insert brand, and I love XYZ product. My audience is insert demographic, millennial women who are looking to learn more about insert product, insert brand, and given this, I am interested in inquiring about a potential partnership. I love to explore ways that we can meet your marketing initiatives, or something along those lines. And of course, you want to personalize it. Talk about your mission, talk about what you do, and why you want to work with this brand. So instead of sending a more general email or copy and pasting templates, try to really get specific. Keep it short, keep it sweet, but definitely try to get specific about this brand in particular, because they're sifting through and they're saying, hey, this person actually did their homework, or hey, this person actually loves us. This is in direct alignment with what we're trying to do. If you are not interested in pitching, there's another way for micro-influencers to work with brands. You have non-exclusive influencer agencies and platforms. And I do have a disclaimer about them, but these are some of the ones that are listed here. These are all platforms that I've used in the past, and especially early on, to partner with brands and build my portfolio. They do state whether the opportunities are paid or unpaid. They do state what they're offering. And like I said, it's just a great way to go on and see see what brands are actually partnering with creators, what size you need to be. They even give you advice oftentimes on what your pricing should look like. So it's gonna be a really great resource for a micro-influencer or someone who is just starting off. Like I said, I've worked with brands from each one of these platforms, and these are notable brands. And so this is definitely something to keep in mind. As a disclaimer, definitely read the fine print. Definitely negotiate, because sometimes they will try to slide things into the terms and conditions that are not the best way to protect yourself. So that might include usage in perpetuity and so on and so forth. So you'll definitely want to vet these opportunities and see if they're worth, participating in. On top of that, if you don't want to work with them directly on these influencer agencies and marketing platforms, you can sift through, use this as a resource, and then separately email them, which I actually highly recommend. So this is just gonna be a way to show you which brands are actually working with content creators if you don't know where to start. And should you work with a manager or agency? This is going to be a really good question if you don't want to pitch or if you don't want to put yourself out there as a micro-influencer. There's a potential to work with a management team. And there are pros and cons to that. I have been doing this for 5 years, and I just now signed on with a manager and an agency because early on, I had the time to actually pitch, and I actually enjoyed that part of the process. And so I didn't mind doing that. I didn't mind sending emails. I didn't mind, connecting with brands and having these conversations. But if that's something that you're like, I don't want any parts, it might make sense for you to sign on with an agency or a manager so they will handle that whole process for you, and they will get you in front of brands that you may not be able to get yourself in front of. And this is great, like I said, if if you're averse to rejection, or that just this side of the business kind of scares you, or it's something you don't want to take part in, or let's say you have a full-time job and you simply don't have the time to work on this side of the business, this is going to be a great option. Or if negotiating intimidates you, or you feel like you're not truly leveraging your skills or kind of your prices, this is a great way for someone to take that on for you. And then a big question to ask yourself is, are you willing to give up 15 to 20% of your income to work with an agency or a manager? So early on, like I said, I was a broke backpacker, so I couldn't afford the 15 to 20%. And like I said, I didn't mind pitching myself. And so this is a question to ask yourself. Like I said, if you have a full-time job, you just, it may not be a big thing, or you're paying for them to actually handle a big bulk of your business, as emails takes time, as emailing back and forth takes time, pitching takes time, negotiating takes time, and this also takes time away from the creativity and actually creating content for your business and focusing on that side of things, which is, I'm sure, what most of us got into this for. So now that I have a manager, I am able to really just create, and it's really great. I have a lot more time to batch content, to create content, to think of ideas, because I'm not spending all day in emails. So should you accept unpaid collabs? This is going to be a great question, especially as a micro-influencer. And there are a lot of things you should ask yourself about this process. I don't believe that there's a black and white answer. I think it truly depends on you, your situation, and your goals. The first question to ask yourself is, do you love the brand? Do you genuinely love and already use the brand? Would you be purchasing this product or experience anyway, and or talking about it anyway? So let's say you always talk about booking.com. Well, if you're starting off and you're looking to build your portfolio or just kind of get that experience with working with brands and creating content for them, this might be a good opportunity to actually take. And also there's going to be aside from compensation, there are other benefits that this can provide. So of course there's compensation. They may be providing you with gift cards. They may be providing you with experiences that would ultimately save you money down the line. So let's say you got invited to the Maldives. Let's say you're not paying. Well, let's think about how much a trip to the Maldives cost. would you ultimately be saving money or having an exceptional experience that you may not otherwise have? And while the Maldives is a bit far out, let's think about all travel brands and all destinations that you might be reaching out to that, once again, it might allow you to create a higher quality and higher quantity content. Do you share values? That's gonna be an important question to ask yourself, whether you're accepting unpaid or paid collaborations. Will this benefit your audience? What purpose does it actually serve them? Is it just serving you and the brand, or is it actually serving your audience? Is it, are you informing them of something? Are you educating them in some way? Are you providing them with the entertainment? This is something to keep in mind. And then, of course, does this fuel your growth as a content creator? Like I said, that first partnership that I took with Gecko's Adventures, it certainly did. It allowed me to grow in terms of my content, but it also served as a great representative in terms of, as I was continuing to pitch brands and as I was continuing to work with brands, I could say, hey, look at what I did in the past for kind of a bit of social proof, and it worked out really great. So it's truly going to depend on you, your goals, and of course your audience as well. Charge your worth plus tax. So there are your general deliverables that you're working with or that you're providing when you work with brands. As a micro-influencer, once again, that number may be a bit smaller when it comes to deliverables. However, there are so many ways that you can negotiate these offerings, which is why it is crucial that you read your contract. Usage. Usage is, there's a price across the board, whether you are a small creator or whether you're a larger creator. So if these brands are charging you for usage, if they're charging you for exclusivity, which means you cannot work with other brands, if they're charging you for whitelisting, or they're going to use your content in paid advertisements, if you have a very niche reach, regardless of size, if you have above average engagement, if they're requesting that you turn around this content in a short period of time, let's say in a few days, also the time and cost spent creating content. So aside from the deliverables themselves, which you're pricing for based on your following size, there are so many other ways to negotiate that offer and say, hey, you're requesting usage for the next 3 years. What would that look like? How much money is this brand potentially making off of your content if they're using it in paid advertisements? So these are all questions to ask yourself as you're going through your contracts and as you're deciding to work with the brand. Sometimes they might say, or oftentimes there's a chance that they say, hey, we can't pay you for that. So that's when you decide, is this opportunity worth is it worth seeking? And I would advise you to, like I said, just know your worth, charge your worth, see which opportunities are actually going to help you grow or actually connect with you as an individual, and also with your audience. And if it's not it, then it is not it. Once again, there's no need to sacrifice your brand or your skills, which are there regardless of your size, for the opportunity to work with a brand. Free yourself up to brands that are actually in alignment with you and that are actually going to pay you your worth. Okay, well, thank you so much. That concludes my presentation. I tried to include as much as possible, so I truly hope that it was helpful to creators regardless of your size. And if you have any questions, we've got about 12 minutes left, and I would be happy to answer them. Yes, so this is going to be an interesting question because it's something that I've still had trouble with even to this day. I would recommend, so for example, the influencer marketing platforms that I showed, a lot of them will, go ahead. Oh, yes. So she asked, what resources would you provide to someone who is looking to find out how they can actually price themselves or which rates that they can provide? So actually, first, I'll answer this, rate sheets. So a lot of people advise you to create a rate sheet. I actually don't advise you to do that, because let's say a brand actually comes to you, or you go to the brand and you ask them what their budget is, or they propose a budget, and you've priced yourself at this rate, but they actually had this much money to give you. Well, they're gonna offer what you've said as opposed to the actual money that's available to you. So I would advise against a rate sheet, and there's gonna be some trial and error, especially if you're pitching yourself or pricing yourself and you don't have a manager. So there's the ability to experiment with that. If a brand comes to you, they offer you something and you're like, oh, I could be charging this. And this is what happened to me early on when I was like, oh, I'm really underpricing myself. And just kind of that experimentation with working with different brands really helps. And on top of that, like I said, if you do sign up for some of these influencer marketing agencies, they will give you an average price that people within your size charge. And so you can kind of use that as a base point, and from there, depending on which deliverables or what they're asking for within the contract, you can then, of course, if they're asking for exclusivity or usage or anything like that, you can then add on to that as well. Is that helpful? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes. Yes, so this is going to be a lot of trial and error, like I said. So there's the non-exclusive agencies that I listed out, which you can kind of go through, read some of their terms and conditions, see what it's like to work with them, what type of prices that they're offering, and see if that's something that you're interested in. And then when it comes to management, it is going to be just a lot of searching. I found that there aren't a lot of travel-specific managers, which there's an open space for that for anyone who has, experience in PR or running agencies. And so that's a little bit more difficult for, I feel like, travel content creators to find management that is specific to them, because the destinations, tourism boards, it's a very specific type of partnership. And it's very different than a traditional collaboration with, let's say, Nordstrom or Sony or these bigger brands. And so it's really going to be, I would do a lot of research to see what agencies are out there and what management companies are out there. And then I would, of course, once you get into contact with them, because a lot of them do have forms that are available on their websites to submit yourself, ask them questions about their experience within the travel industry and working with travel content creators specifically. Because like I said, it's a very specific industry when it comes to partnerships. And then on top of that, you can really just, like I said, vet for yourself, ask them questions about, of course, what's the percentage that they're taking from these collaborations? Are they a small agency or a larger agency? Which means, are they going to actually be able to focus on you as a creator, or are they going to spend their time focusing on macro influencers? So there's going to be a lot of questions that you're going to ask, even when you do come into contact with these managers or agencies. And you do have individuals that are it's smaller agencies, or you do have individuals. I have friends that are working with individual managers where their manager only manages them. It might be a family friend, or it might be someone who's reached out to them for management, or someone that they've specifically reached out to. And then, of course, you have larger management agencies that manage a plethora of influencers. And so I think it truly depends on the type of experience you're wanting with them. Is that helpful? Yeah, so that's such a good question and something to keep in mind. I do find that it is, for those larger agencies, they typically do have a threshold. But there are agencies that do cater to smaller influencers, and this is when you might look for someone who is working with individuals or working with those smaller agencies or travel specific. And that would probably be the lane you want to go with, as opposed to seeking out these agencies that are working with influencers that have millions of followers. Gabby? Yes, so that's such a good question. I would say the number one thing that you should look for is a brand that allows you to be yourself. So there are times when I've had brands that say, we've seen your content, we like how you storytell, and we want you to do just that. Like, do not change your voice. Like, we reached out to you for your voice specifically, for the way that you storytell. And so, of course, that empowers me to actually just be myself. It works for everyone involved because, you know, it works for the brand, it works for me, of course, and then it works for my audience. So that partnership doesn't seem out of whack with what I would normally do. And so any partnership that has allowed me the freedom to just do what I do, or there are a limited number of, what would you say? There's a limited number of kind of reviews that you have to go through. They're just like, do what you do. Go to this destination, here's the product, like, share your experience. But that's also because, like I said, if you're creating content and they see what you do, they can trust that you are going to create, you know, high quality content for them. And when you ask about a favorite specifically, it's a really hard question. When it comes to destinations, I've enjoyed working with, like I said, destinations that just allow me to be myself. They might, as a solo traveler, they might send me there alone or with a +1. They essentially say, go enjoy, report back. And I enjoy that a lot more than destinations that have very strict itineraries, because how can you write about an experience if you're not experiencing it? And so that's extremely important to me. And then when it comes to specific brands, I would say a really cool partnership that I have done and that I loved was a partnership with Airbnb, and it was an 80-day trip around the world, and that was crazy. Yes. So, and that was really unexpected, and that came from a viral a tweet that I made very organically, and I slid in the DMs and was like, hey, take a look at this, Mr. Marketing person at Airbnb. And he kind of was just like, oh, okay, cool. But then a week later, he reached out and they said, hey, well, we would like you to invite you on this experience. And that was, I have no words for what that was like. So I was very grateful for the opportunity. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah, so that's such a good question. I don't think that that's absolutely necessary. I do think that it can be very beneficial, but I would say oftentimes when I would pitch, I might point out a specific product, or I might point out a specific feature that I love, but I wouldn't necessarily send them over an exact idea of this is what I want to do for this campaign. Now, like I said, there is the opportunity to do that. I don't think it hurts at all, and it probably does help, but it's not absolutely necessary if you don't have those ideas. And when it comes to ideas for creating content, whether that be organic or non-organic, I truly encourage you to, regardless of the brand or if it's a partnership, to continue to source your as you come across ideas. I have a note of about 100 different types of captions that I continue to add to, whether I'm in the shower, whether I'm chilling at home, or anything like this, because I may not be creating the content or the caption in that moment, but I know that I can refer to it later down the line. If I'm creating content organically, I need to post that day, or even if I'm working with a brand, I might say, oh, this idea works perfectly with this brand. And then, of course, and I think that is something that you should be doing regardless of if you have partnerships or not, just because that will continue to keep you going as a content creator, and you'll continue to be able to source those ideas, and from those ideas you'll develop more ideas. And another piece of advice I would give you would be to source your audience. So ask them what problems that they're having. Ask them what they would like to know, or what they would like, or if there's anything from you that they could learn from, and use that as pieces of content. So if they ask you, hey, how do you stay safe when you travel solo? There's so many ways that you could talk about that. And even when it comes to working with brands, let's say it's, this is so specific, but a pepper spray brand, or a brand that has locks for your luggage, or a brand that anything that might be related to solo travel, you already have this content kind of lined up and these examples and ideas lined up, and all you have to do is naturally integrate them into content that you have already created or that you're in the process of creating. Does that help? Okay, perfect. Mm-hmm. Yes. So for the first 3 to 4 years, I did mostly pitching, and I believe because of those contacts that I made early on, brands began to pitch me. So whether that be an agency that has worked with someone that's worked with me in the past, if that makes sense, because a lot of these brands are working with larger agencies, and they have a host of clients and a host of brands that they're servicing. If they worked with you before, if their coworker has worked with you before, they might refer you, of course. And so I believe those initial contacts help. And then on top of that, I would say the experience, the biggest takeaway I have from the experience is to properly vet. So it is exciting to have brands coming to you, of course, but that doesn't change the need to remain true to your values and to continue to keep your audience in mind, because I think it can be very easy to get excited about an opportunity or, just this is a really cool brand that you want to work with, but I think it's important to continue to ask yourself, is this actually beneficial, not only to me, but to my audience? Does it actually make sense for me? And as they're pitching you, of course, you do have more leverage for negotiations, so that's something important to keep in mind. You do have more leverage for certain requests. So can I bring a +1? Let's say you're working with the tourism board. Do I have the ability to bring a +1? A brand is coming to you for a reason. And so you also have leverage in the partnership. It's supposed to be a collaboration. And I think it's important to keep that in mind and not feel so lucky that a brand is that they want to work with you. I think it's important to keep your standards and continue to vet those brands accordingly. So that's a really great question and something I absolutely advise you to do. So if you take a screenshot of those analytics, even if it wasn't a partnership, but also if it was, you can absolutely use that to say, hey, take a look at these analytics, take a look at the link clicks, and just something to keep in mind. I'd love for you to keep me in mind for future collaborations. And that's a great resource for them to say, hey, okay, she's producing these views, she's producing these link clicks. And even if it's a brand, even if it's not that specific brand, so let's say you have worked with a similar brand, this is a great way for you to also leverage that content and say, hey, look at these analytics. These are the results that I'm getting from my campaign, or look how highly engaged my audience is on, let's say, a very similar brand or a product. So I would recommend leveraging that in any instance that you reach out to a brand or that a brand reaches out to you. Something that I also often include in my reports is comments that I'm receiving. So I'll take a screenshot of comments because that's engagement and any discussion that surrounds the brand or the destination, both before and after the campaign. And I think that's just very helpful. Even though it's not a specific analytic, it's proof of engagement. And we are out of time. Once again, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope that this was really helpful to everyone.